Live with Kevin Rankin.
What's happening, everybody? Thank you for being here at All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. It's been a little bit, but today is going to be a fantastic show. Before I even get started, though, I want to thank a couple of people. First of all, you guys already know that my sponsors, 5-Star Guitars in Beaverton, Oregon, has made this possible. They are based in Oregon, so there's no sales tax. And if you go to the promo code below, if you go to use promo code AllAccess15 by going to 5starguitars.com/allaccesslive, enter that promo code. You're going to save 15% off everything you see. You're saving by putting no sales tax in the shopping cart, and you're going to support a great business that actually was voted by the NAMM Association, the North American Music Merchant Association, as the #1 music vendor in America. So 5starguitars.com. If you go there, you're going to see an amazing selection of guitars. They have repairs. They've got lessons. Professionals like Jennifer Batten actually teach virtually out of that store. So go there, let them know I sent you, and I would appreciate that. If you're watching this on anything other than YouTube, do me a favor. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin and subscribe to this channel. If you've not already done so, you're going to find over 280 other episodes. You can become a member and support this channel. If you do that, you're going to have access to members-only podcasts as well. So I've got one in the coffers. Kelly Kiki, drummer and singer for Night Ranger, is the next members-only podcast available. You'll find Cy Kernan from The Fix and Midge Ure from Ultravox also in there. Lots of great opportunities. So become a member. If nothing else, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. Go through those videos, like this one for sure, and then share it. Let other people know about it. I also want to thank the newest supporters of this organization, CymbalSocks.com. Cymbal Socks is an amazing organization that, let me just show you what these guys do. It's really cool. They provide drummers an opportunity so that they never have to have fingerprints on their cymbals again. They just happen to have two different kinds. There's a elastic kind and a drawstring option. These cymbals come out, or these cymbal socks, they come out. You can find a beautiful Kevin Rankin signature series here. These cymbal socks drape over the top of your cymbals. Woo, the ghosting of this camera here. Let's see if I can get in close enough. All right, so that right there goes, your cymbal goes through there, and these wrap around the top of your cymbals whenever you're transporting them. No fingerprints anymore. They come on and off easily, so go to cymbalsocks.com and check them out. Finally, Slim Sadie's Beef Jerky actually sent me a killer gift pack. And they're American-made Slim Sadie's Beef Jerky right there. So go check them out. Thank you guys for sending me the goods. And all right, so enough business. Let's talk about the fun stuff. Now, my next guest is one of the most charismatic and talented mofos you're going to find on the planet. We just recently reconnected, but we met probably 15, maybe 20 years ago. He's played for everybody from the Motels. He plays drums. He's an amazing audio engineer. So he was out playing with the Motels. He was playing with Bow Wow Wow. He's done so many gigs, and right now he's the audio engineer for the Jimmy Kimmel Show. And we'll talk about all that and more. So right, with no further ado, please welcome my buddy TIG Moore. How you doing, pal?
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, man. I think I probably sold you short. I only told people about a couple of the different hats that you wear. But aside from Bow Wow Wow and the Motels, you just mentioned a couple of other opportunities that you've had in the past musically. And I just ran into you with Robbie Krieger the other day. So what were you doing out with Robbie?
I'm Robbie's front of house engineer, and I help him a bit at the studio, at his studio, Love Street Sound, in Burbank, Glendale area, California, which is right around the corner from my house.
Nice.
And I've been with Robbie for about a year now, give or take. I got that gig because of Hollywood Vampires.
Really?
I was working for Hollywood Vampires, and Marco Moyer, songwriter, guitar player, brilliant guy, is a close friend of Robbie's and runs the studio for him, and is currently basically remodeling the studio and relaunching it, and it's really becoming, well, you know, it's like basically it's like a museum for the Doors.
Oh, yeah,
Essentially,
man, I'm sure.
it's incredible.
For people that don't know that you're watching this, you better know. But Robbie Krieger is obviously, he's a guitar guitars for the Doors.
Oh, I should have said that.
I know. I mean, but you know, it kind of goes without needing to be said. But
Yeah.
I mean, the Vampires too. So you got Alice Cooper, you got Joe Perry, you got
Yeah.
uh, Glenn Sobel, dear friend
Yeah.
Glenn Sobel, playing drums on that gig. Not a bad.
Yeah.
gig.
Yeah.
That guy's got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
and so that led its way to get the Robbie Krieger gig for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it just kind of happened because of my buddy Marco was like, hey, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm doing this, that, and the other thing. He said, would you be willing to come down to the studio and just take a look at what we're doing and how we're doing it and, becoming part of the fam a little bit. And I went and mixed a couple of shows for him, and I guess he liked what I did, and I'm still there, and I do that, and as well as a million other things. But yeah, I love working with Robbie. He's a fabulous, fabulous human being, as well as, of course, the legendary guitar player. And I'm from Los Angeles, so the Doors is, they're our band.
Yeah, right.
They're
Yeah.
Venice, California, and I've been a fan since I was just a little guy. Quick side note: it's kind of funny, a full circle moment. In sixth grade, you had to do, before you graduated, you had to do a kind of a presentation to the whole school. My presentation was on the Doors, on the meeting of Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek, complete with, this was in the 70s, so because I'm old, but we didn't have like audio visual things, so I did these interpretive drawings of some of Jim's poems and some of the lyrics of the songs, and I went and got an overhead projector from the library. You remember those old-fashioned ones with the little like a crane arm and a little light box on top, and I put my pictures on there and I projected it onto the auditorium wall to show these are my interpretations of what Jim was talking about in the lyrics. And I go through the story of Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek meeting, and their first musical moment was on the beach in Venice, California, and they wrote this song, and I pressed play on a cassette boombox player of the song Moonlight Drive, which was the first song they ever wrote together. And then here we are 40 years later, and I work for Robbie Krieger. I'm in a studio. I know his family, and it's pretty amazing.
Does he obviously knows the story, but do you still have the drawings?
I think I might. I think I might. I haven't found them in a long time, but I can't see me getting rid of them. They're probably locked away in a file cabinet somewhere with a million other things throughout my career.
Yeah, well, yeah, you've got a pretty storied career, man. So, some people might not know the illustrious history of TIG MOORE.
I'm not famous like some of the other people you have on your podcast, though. I'm just a working stiff, Kev.
People know this about the show. That, I mean, as you know, we're all working stiff. Doesn't matter what level anybody is at. I mean, they all have family history and drama and heartache and loss and love and excitement. And so, for me, I love being able to share some of that stuff, from people that maybe they might not have the opportunity to share it. Listen to your beautiful atrium there. Right? You've got the aviary. You've got birds in the background. Like, where you want to tell people where you're at right now?
I'm visiting family in Atascadero, California, Northern California, just inland from Morro Bay. Nice. Do you know where that is? Oh, it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning here. We're just up for a couple days before my kids go back to school, visiting Grandpa and my wife, and we just hang out, we swim, and we take long walks. There's a lake on the other side of this house right here. On the back side, there's a lake, and it's wonderful up here. We're just spending a couple days. We just got back from Lake Powell, taking a bit of a break. I've got to be back in LA on Friday because I have a gig, like always.
What's your Friday gig?
A band called Sold Out. Not SOLD, but SOUL''D. It's these two sisters and a cousin, these three women that do these incredible vocal arrangements, and it's those three. I play percussion and some light drum parts live, and a guitar player is doing like cool jazz chords. It's all soul music. It's all covers. Marvin Gaye, Sam Cooke, Otis Redding. We're playing at a country club in the hills, like La Crescenta area, La Crescenta, California. It's really nice. It's
That's
like a
cool.
total swanky
Yeah.
situation, and they have a they're doing a international bocce tournament, I guess, or some kind of sports, lawn bowling kind of thing,
Okay.
and we're the entertainment. So
Nice.
yeah,
Th-
it's a fun little casual gig.
Get the tip jar out.
Yeah, yeah, full on,
Yeah,
full
man.
on.
For people that don't know too, because I would imagine, man, when you're doing gigs like you talked about subbing on The Voice or one of those
Yeah,
kinds of shows, right, where
yeah.
you work with all these people in the industry, and they probably don't get to see the family side of TIG. I mean, watching and knowing you for as long as I have, becoming a parent and sort of dedicated husband is such a big part of your life, man. I know that is a really, really big thing for you.
Yes.
Um, how do you balance that, man? I mean, I'm sure the pandemic kind of was nice to have more time to spend with family.
It's interesting. I know you have children too, and we've bonded over that over the years.
Yeah,
You know, Kev, the thing about our life is when you're as driven as we are and as invested emotionally, not just physically, not just financially, but emotionally invested in what we do, in creating music and mixing music and playing music and touring. It can be all consuming.
yeah,
And I learned very early on that for me at this stage in my life and my career, that I needed to understand that I'm not going to get this time back with my children. I have two children. I have a boy and a girl. And when my little girl was little, I was gone a lot.
yeah.
And when she was basically a newborn, I handed her to my wife and said, "Okay, I'll see you in 3 months. I'm going to go around the world with Whitesnake,
Oh,
and I'll see you when I get back." And I would come home, and she wouldn't know who I was, and
wow.
it was heart wrenching. It was absolutely heart wrenching, and I vowed I'm going to change my life. I'm gonna do something differently, and it took me a long time to kind of transition myself in world, working gig to gig. At that point in my career, it was kind of 50-50, half playing drums and half mixing. I was on tour at the time with Whitesnake and Luis Miguel and Matchbox 20 and Social Distortion.
Very mixing for all those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, um, and playing in the motels, Bow Wow Wow, Gene Loves Jezebel, Billy Veer and the Beaters, lots of others,
Yeah,
local
yeah.
stuff too. Um, so, I was very busy at the time, and I went and talked to a couple of friends of mine who were making a transition off the road as well. And one in particular, a buddy of mine named Chuck Orozco, uh, who I toured with Robin Thicke with, and I've known him for years. And I asked my buddy Chuck, like, I'm thinking about coming off the road. My little girl's, she's a few months old now, and this is getting too hard. And it's hard on my wife. My wife is a
Yeah.
professional as well. At the time, she was running Moet Hennessy. She was running the sales and marketing for the entire West Coast of Moet Hennessy. And so she's an executive and with a real gig and a
Yeah.
newborn baby. And we were talking about having a second. And I had to get off the road. And he said, "Listen, uh, I've got my union card, my 695 IATSE union card, live audio for television. It's just a little bit of a carve out in the union membership. Um, I'll, I'll direct you on how to do it. It's not easy. It's really, really difficult to do. And it took me 3 years to get my card. 3 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It took me 3 years of mixing non-union television, taking the shit gig for the news program that nobody else wants, shitty pay, but most importantly, it's one more day that I could count towards my union membership. And
Yeah.
I did that for 3 years, just wherever I could. And I was also at the time, I know it sounds like a lot, but I was also the head audio at the Wiltern for 20 years, the Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And that helped me get a little bit of film credits every now and again. I'd get on a non-union commercial or a non-union TV show, or maybe just a musical segment that's on a TV show. The segment was non-union, that kind of thing. Um, and I just over time accumulated enough days that I could get a union card, and and I really did think that once I get my card, I'm going to be on the shit end of, the union membership, and
Right.
I'm going to be
Bottom of the
pulling.
barrel.
Bottom of the barrel, pulling cable for across a football field for a year, but it didn't work out that way for me. I had some, like I said, my buddy Chuck and a few other really key friends kind of took me under their wing and said, no, 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 this guy can mix. Come over here. And I got walked into Jimmy Kimmel Live. I got walked into The Voice. I got walked into the Anthony Jeselnik Offensive, a Comedy Central show. Just a handful of key shows, American Idol, shows that were doing live music on television. And, I being on the mic, on both sides of the microphone as an artist and now as a mixer, really helped in that
Yeah.
environment. So that's how I did it.
Man, I think a lot of people that are in the performance end, they don't understand what goes on, behind the scenes. I mean, anything for TV and production that way, the production end, watching, The Voice or American Idol, any of those shows, people don't understand
No.
how much goes into that show. So when you got a gig like The Voice, are you, as a head engineer, an audio engineer, are you actually basically directing traffic for all the other sort of components?
No, that's the broadcast engineer's job. I mix music. I'll do a music mix, meaning my mix goes to the broadcast engineer, and I give him a left and right of my mix, because remember, the broadcast engineer is dealing with dialogue, commercial bumps in and out, recorded bumps, maybe a voiceover, all kinds of shit, all kinds of stuff. He's got all that coming in at once, so he can't, under most TV shows are this way, he doesn't deal with, oh my God, that snare sounds terrible, or you know what I mean, or that vocal is it's too hot and it's distorting, or whatever. He doesn't have time, or he doesn't have the bandwidth to do that, or even the channels sometimes, on the console. So that is handled by a different engineer, and that is the music mixer's job. I do that on some shows. I also mix, like on The Voice, I mix monitors for Paul Merkovich's band, but I'm just a fill-in guy there. I'm not permanent there. I am semi-permanent right now at Kimmel, mixing Cleto and the Cletones. But it's a very transient thing. We all kind of do this. We replace each other all the time. The Voice particularly has a brilliant engineer, Sean Sebastian, who's doing it. I've been filling in over there for probably 10 years now, a long time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I was filling in for their old mixer, a guy named Bill Dietzman. And so I work with Nate Morton, your friend, who's perhaps one of, if not the best drummer on the planet.
I agree with you, man. And I think he's glad to be sort of under the radar that way, but yeah, I mean, what is it that he can't do?
Oh, dude. Drum talk for a moment, because you're a stellar drummer too. You're an incredible drummer.
Not even in the same universe, bro.
But you're really good. And but watching Nate, we have our thing. Like, I'm a groove guy. I'm good with R&B. I'm good with rock and roll. Good with soul. That's kind of my wheelhouse. I'm not flashy. I'm not, super, super choppy guy. You're a total finesse tactician in every way. You've got style and chops. We've all got our thing. Nate's thing is everything. Like, he plays country, and you're like, oh, clearly he's a country guy. And then he plays rock, and you're like, oh, clearly he's a rock guy. And then he plays soul and funk, and you're like, oh, fuck, he's like, Stubblefield. He's like,
I know, dude. It's not even fair.
It's not even fair,
man. But you know what, man? Drum talk, really. A lot of people ask me, who's your favorite drummer? Who's your biggest influence? All that. We get those questions a bunch. But I would tell somebody, who my favorite to watch is, because I think that's one thing when you go see a show and you see people that are really dynamic and showy, right? So I've seen a bunch of great big production things, and like I'm a huge Pink fan,
Yeah.
right? So
Oh yeah.
Brian Fraser Moore right now is doing that gig. I mean, seeing Shulman do that gig for a long time too. He just had pocket, but he also had the right kind of amount of finesse and flair. Watching Nate, everything he does is he makes it look so easy, right? And he's got the right amount of flamboyance. I love the fact that he's on TV, but the camera's rarely on him,
Yeah.
right? You got to see him more back in like the Rockstar Supernova, Rockstar NXS
Yeah. Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, and other drummers, like drummers know him,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So the guys, if you'll ask guys that are in the know, like, oh yeah, dude on The Voice, even if they don't know Nate's
Yeah.
name, they're like, that's
That
the
guy.
dude. Yeah.
There's
So,
always a, oh yeah, that dude. Yeah.
so Nate, we already got you, man. We took care of all your puffing up. This is the TIG Moore show.
It's okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, so when you're doing that work with him and like you're mixing those shows, I mean, Paul is the music director on the show, right? Does he dictate to you, hey Tig, this is kind of what I'm envisioning being the bed underneath these artists? Because the main point in that show is the voice, right? It's the singers.
Yeah.
So does he say this is kind of what we're trying to give to you, and this is how we expect, like, because I mean, I would imagine you're not mixing for a record, right? You're mixing for broadcast, and I would imagine that's a lot different.
Well, on The Voice particularly, I'm mixing monitors for them.
Oh, right.
So
Okay,
it's
right.
very front of house, when you're mixing front of house, I got a left and right, maybe an outfill or a center cluster or something, but I'm mixing for the audience in that
Right.
environment. So I'm,
Yeah.
I'm here and I'm like an audience member and I'm going, okay, this is where this needs to be. Oh, I need a little more of that. When you're mixing monitors, certainly on a show like that, I'm dealing with 7 to 10 really specific mixes. The background singers want the person next to them only on their left side, and they want themselves above it, and they want reverb only here but not there, and Paul needs these keys on top of these are down below because that's a live instrument and he's playing B3 on this song but not on the other one. And
Right.
Nate has an acoustic kit and an electronic kit, and that's a different thing, and there's clicks everywhere, and we've also got a Pro Tools guy that it's coming in and out.
Oh,
And with Kimmel, it's much like on the Kimmel show, it's much more organic. It's Rhonda Smith from Prince's band. It's just so good, um, and so with them, it's much more organic, it's much more band-like, because they're just playing bumpers in and bumpers out, maybe one full song, maybe two,
yeah.
and that is much more. It's much more like, I want us to sound like a band. Can you make us sound like
Okay.
a band in our ears?
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like we're wearing ears. I'd rather I forgot this and I'm focused
Yeah.
on what Jimmy's doing and what the audience is doing. And so each show is very different that way.
When you got on Kimmel, you got a live performance coming in. Are those bands bringing their audio engineer, or do you actually mix for the bands that play live?
It depends. Most of we used to have a giant stage out back pre-COVID, and that was the big concert stage, and that's usually about 400 or 500 people. It's usually they allow everybody inside the show to go outside and watch the band, but they also a lot of times will invite the band's fan club in Los Angeles or something like that. And on those shows, we are allowed per our union contract to allow them sometimes to mix, but oftentimes they don't bring somebody because it's union, because it's television, and usually it's on the front end of a tour. So they're doing press. Metallica's new record is coming out next week. They're going to come and do a couple songs. They haven't quite or I say Metallica, but it could be anybody. That just comes to mind because we just did them before we shut down for the strike. But they will sometimes they'll bring their own people for that, but a lot of times they don't as well. So on that show, I've gotten to mix some really, really great artists, Garth Brooks and Queens of the Stone Age, and just really like people you wouldn't expect. Like I would, I would expect them to bring an engineer,
Right.
but they didn't.
Yeah.
So I end up getting to mix them. But that's out back, and then there's
Yeah.
a smaller stage in the front lounge, which is for more intimate. We do comedy up there, smaller bands or bands that just don't want to be outside in the the thing. I've done Mana up there, and just REO Speedwagon, Weezer, a bunch of different stuff up there.
Oh yeah.
But every once in a while, we'll have a band inside. I mentioned Metallica. Just before we shut down for the strike a couple of months ago, we had Metallica on, and they did, I think, 5 songs off the new record, and also I think they did Master of Puppets too.
Oh wow.
Because of the Stranger Things excitement around that record.
Oh, that's
and we had them in the studio, which we
Were you
normally
mixing that one?
no, unfortunately I wasn't. They brought their own guy, but I got to be there, and I certainly help, and they oftentimes will integrate some of our infrastructure with some of theirs. But we all help as an audio crew. There's a stellar crew on that show that's been there for a very long time, and they're really, really great.
I love that we're having this conversation about mixing and monitors. There's some people in the comments that have said, hey, that Kevin's volume is about 33% the level of TIG. So I need a monitor engineer to help mix this thing.
I just noticed.
I'll boost mine here a little bit, folks.
Drop mine.
And I don't want to make sure that mine's distorted here.
Okay.
So, but yeah, if back in there's not much we can do in post. It's a live show. We wing it. Sometimes technology works in my favor, some not. But thank you for letting me know, folks. When you get notified about those shows, like the Kimmel show in particular, how much advance notice do you have when an artist is coming up? Is it like weeks in advance?
It depends. Some things are very last minute. On bigger stuff, we'll know pretty well in advance because there's a lot of, we're going to have to change this, or we're going to move them out there. They're going here. There's a lot of pre-production that happens, and there'll be an email chain, and everybody will start talking about. And there's a fabulous dude in charge of all that stuff named Mac and Lay, Eduardo Mac and Lay, who it handles a lot of that advance for us, and he'll kind of ask us questions, if he thinks it's something that we need to be consulted on. Well, what do you think? They're talking about using some of our wedges, or we're going to have a person sit in with the band with Cleto, and that'll be all us. That's entirely us. So like if Ace Frehley goes to sit in with the band, or I think Eddie.
Does that happen?
Oh yeah. Ace has done it.
Okay.
Robbie's done it, actually. Robbie Krieger's done it.
Wow, right
before
on.
I was working for him, but yeah, Robbie's done it, and a few other people have over the years have sat in with Cleto and the Cletones. Pretty cool stuff. But yeah, we do get some advance notice on that sort of thing.
Well, as an engineer, you probably know this already. For me, as a drummer, my favorite thing is when you show up to a venue and the engineer's done the research on the band. So if you're actually using the house guy,
Yes.
and he shows up and he said, hey man, so I was listening to live performances of the band, do it this way, and so I plan on mixing it this way. Any aversion to that? And the fact that they know the songs so well, to me, I think, man, that's a class act,
For
right?
sure.
And so they know the right reverbs to throw in there. They know, like even tendencies. Like there'll be a guy that said, what I noticed, you guys are a little bit on top of the beat when you play this part live, and they'll make those comments like, do you want us to do this to help? Almost like they're being part of the band.
Yeah.
But they're not mailing it in.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's super cool. So do you try to do that when you've got bands coming through?
Absolutely, 100%. The first thing, like I said earlier, being on both sides of the microphone over the years,
Yeah.
being an engineer, an audio engineer, has really helped me as a drummer, as a songwriter, as a producer.
I bet.
Absolutely, 100%, because crafting a tone, crafting a sound, knowing how to get there. It's not just, use this mic or use that plug-in or use that preamp, or, there's shaping a tune. That is, it's a critical factor. When you listen to some of the bands that we grew up loving, would When the Levee Breaks be the same if they didn't hang that microphone in the gun turret of that castle? The engineer went, let's hang a Neumann or a Telefunken from the, and just see what the reverb sounds like, and all of a sudden you have magic. That sort of thing is one side of it, but then on the other side, like you're talking about, being an audio engineer, as I mean, being an artist who understands that audio. The one of the very first things I learned in this business, and I did it a lot when I was at the Wiltern, because you have everybody from the Rolling Stones to the local act that's starting to rise in a
Right.
24 to 2,600 seat theater. The first thing I always did is I go find either, if they brought their own engineer, he usually will find me at front of house, or I go find the production manager or the tour manager, and I say, "Hi, my name is TIG. Uh, I've got your input list. I've got your stage plot. I listened to a couple tunes. Here's what I have for a PA for you today. I've got the Vertec 89s, and I've got these subs, and I got these front fills. Where would you like your subs crossed over?" Just some basic stuff. And this is a trick. I'm revealing a little bit of a trick that I used to do. One of the things is, if I knew the engineer was in the room and I hadn't been introduced to him, or I haven't found him and introduced myself yet, one of the things I do is I make sure when he walks in, my PA is up and firing, sounding fabulous, and playing a tune that I think is either similar or close to a sonic ideal of what the band is. This is what you're working with today. Here's your
Nice.
PA at full bore. Here's what it sounds like at 100 dB, just blasting, kicking your butt, subs hit, kick drum hitting you in the chest. And then all of a sudden the engineer walks in and goes, "Oh, I'm going to have a good day here."
Yeah,
It's gonna be
nice,
good.
man.
Whereas we've all been on the other side, where you walk into the venue and no one says hello to you, no one introduces themselves. They're like, treat you as if like, it's you guys,
Right. Yeah.
I-
They have anything better to do but work with you.
Yeah, and you know what?
Yeah.
If you don't like the fucking gig, don't take it.
Totally.
I've always been on the other side with just, I love what I do. I love every facet of it. So I want to be involved in everything, and I want you to have a great day. I want you to walk out of this venue tonight or this TV show tonight going, now that crew was badass. The same way as an artist, we're da-da, thank you, good night. We walk off stage. We want those people to drive home and go, that was a fucking show.
Yeah.
Flock of Seagulls killed it tonight. Counterfeit Theory killed it tonight. Whoever it is. Animotion killed it tonight. The Motels killed it tonight. They were amazing. I want them walking away going, that was the best I've ever heard that band sound, best I've ever heard them play. And that's my job in all things that I do is,
Tig, people that know you know this about you, but one of my favorite sayings, and I've used this all the time, it's a slogan in my business. There's this quote that Jim Carrey had when he did this commencement speech for these marketing students at Stanford. You probably know it. It's a viral thing. It's been around a million times. But that's sort of the pitch of his speech was to marketing students that are going out to make money, right? And he said, "The effect you have on others is the greatest form of currency there is." And that is absolutely pertinent to what you have been, the person that you are. The first time I met you, I felt like I know this guy. I felt like I was embraced by this guy. You are warm and inviting. When our first few shows that we did together way back in the day, sometimes, when there are bands on the bill that are sort of similar genre, there's a competitive vibe. That's never been the thing with you. I always felt like, man, this guy wants to be my bro. We're going to hang. We're going to go out and we're going to conquer the stage together, even if we're not in the same band. And, we had amazing, close, deep conversations the first time we met.
Yes.
I value that so much. There are very few people that are willing to get vulnerable and deep and talk beyond the surface in our business, as you know.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've mentioned to you the other day, it was really important to me, is that there was a night that I had a bender, right? That was a night that I'm not proud of at all, but it's one that was probably really important for me to have had. We're Atlantic City, rocking.
I remember.
Motion. You're in the Motels.
I remember.
We ended up in a different state with a group of people, and and not different altered state, but a different physical 50 states. Yeah, we went from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, and you documented, you witnessed, behavior of mine that I don't know that I was offensive. I don't think that I was, but you mentioned, my fanaticism with Prince and singing Prince running around the tables of a bar somewhere in Pennsylvania. Uh, I'm embarrassed by the blackout state, but I think it was really
This is
important.
one of the funnest moments, funnest
Yeah.
evenings of my life. Are you kidding? Singing
But here's what I
karaoke.
remember. I remember you telling me, reminding me of this stuff at breakfast in the catering area of that Atlantic City hotel. Somehow we got back there, and you were off like running to do a swim at like sunbreak, right? It was like daybreak, and we're off Atlantic City by the boardwalk, and you're going to go out in the middle of the ocean and go swim. You know, I had been drinking all night. I was like, I could barely walk, and you're like, you're out doing how many miles in the surf with sharks, in New Jersey, man. But you've obviously done a lot to keep yourself physically in a great shape, but emotionally too. You were there was no judgment from you that I felt that night. I really felt like you embraced me for who I was, and I treasure that.
As do I, Kevin. As do I.
I
I think of
I
you
appreciate it,
fondly,
man.
man.
Thank
And
you,
I remember
man.
that.
Like,
And I think on, I was thinking about it today, previous to doing your show, and I was thinking about, well, okay, what was the first couple times? I have a couple key memories. Atlantic City was one of them, which you aforementioned. But I also remember we did this gig at a zoo. Do you remember this?
Phoenix,
Was it the
Phoenix Zoo,
Phoenix Zoo?
where the giraffes were like poking their heads
Yeah,
out over the wall.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh
an
yeah.
elephant snatched a tea out of my hand.
That's right. Oh my
I'm
God.
walking backstage, and an
Ugh.
elephant's truck comes over the wall, and I've got a tea in the bag, and the elephant picks up the tea and turns it upside
You,
down and drinks
uh,
it and hands it back to
you
me.
got teabagged by an elephant, bro. That's awesome. Oh my God. That night actually, uh, that was a special night. That was the first time that my father had seen me perform since like high
I
school.
remember that.
And my dad came down. I remember looking at him side stage. It had been decades, and yeah, man, I broke into tears watching
Yeah.
him because he was so full of joy watching me play. But that night, it was crazy. One of those members of that band, and one of the members of one of the other bands, got in a lot of trouble that night.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that, but he was under the influence and really offensive with some
Yeah.
ladies, and that followed me for years because
Really?
they associated me with that situation, and I
Oh
was
no.
grateful that at that point, my life had taken a better turn, and I was able to be very clear headed about what happened that night. So. The moral of the story is, kids, surround yourself with good people with strong values, and
Don't end up
stay away from
drunk
the
at the
elephants.
Phoenix Zoo.
Jeez, yeah, man, absolutely. We just did SeaWorld on Saturday in Orlando,
Oh, cool.
and the beautiful thing about that, man, because I'm a big animal lover, right? And there's been enough of a PR crisis for SeaWorld
Yeah.
because of the killer whales.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they've done a lot of work to rectify that. I mean, when we went, they took just the band members down to this rescue area where they were doing all this rescue work with sea turtles and manatees,
cool.
and so
Yeah.
they work with NOAA and Fish and Wildlife to track down animals in distress. They bring them in, they do rehabilitation to try and get them back out to survive in the wild. And as far as I understand, they're not training recruiting like new dolphins. I mean, anything that's in their sort of their stable, they breed there, and they're not out just collecting dolphins and training them how to do tricks for our enjoyment. So at least, I mean, it was nice to see that they were doing something really positive with this thing, because I struggle with like you don't want to compromise your values
Right.
by going out there to and,
I saw Blackfish too.
oh yeah, it was tough,
Yeah,
man.
it's hard.
Was,
It's hard. It's hard to see that.
as a parent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your value, like your word, is everything, right? I mean, you and I talked about this just before we went live. Like, it's important for our kids, to understand that no matter what. We're not going to lie to them. We're not going to snow them,
Yeah.
even if it makes us look bad. We're going to be honest with
Yeah.
them, and so like our values, very important. As you've raised your kiddos, I mean, you're in a business that is both professional and exciting, but also nefarious at times,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Do the kids have an interest in being in the music and entertainment business?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, Kev, because both of my kids are artistically, I would say, have some artistic talent. My little boy, Johnny, he just turned 9, and I'll share with you a story. Um, he was probably about 4, or maybe 3.5 or 4, and my wife called me in one day, and I don't remember where I was, but she called me into the house. She said, "Stand here. I want you to hear something." I said, "Okay," and I I kind of put my ear to the door a little bit, and he's just in there going la 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 la, whatever it was, whatever the melody was, and he's just kind of mimicking a melody. And I thought, well, he's in key, he's
Yeah.
moving note to note, there's a tempo in his head. Oh, that's kind of cool. And she goes, "Do you recognize what it is?" And I said, "No, I do you know what is he singing?" And she said, "He's singing the string part to the Disney sound, to the Disney movies." So, like, where my little girl is singing Elsa Let It Go,
Right.
my little boy is singing the string section. He's
Wow.
memorizing, and we figured it out. What he would do is he would watch cartoons and musicals and things on TV, or even songs that I would be playing in the car, or things I was working on. I have a home studio, and he would hear things coming out of the studio. And what we realized is he was not memorizing the lyric, or the vocal melody, or even the signature melody.
Yeah.
He's memorizing the string section, the
Wow.
keypads, the score of the.
Wow.
It was weird. I was like, whoa!
Yeah.
And he
That-
has tremendous ability, but he's painfully shy, and he
Okay.
can sing, but he's really shy about it. He barely do it in front of me, just a little bit. But we listen to him in his room. He's got a little karaoke machine, and he just kind of sings to himself, and he's really good, but he won't do it in front of people. So maybe this is just a gift that he's going to foster for himself. I don't push them. My daughter is artistic in a different way. She sings and dances. She's in choir. She loves it. She's very up, very out person, kind of like me. And she
Yeah.
may really do something if she chooses to. She sews and she draws and she writes. She's just generally very artistic.
Wow.
But I don't push them. I just
Yeah.
make it available to them.
Sure.
There's always a guitar in the house. There is keyboards. There's a drum kit in the garage, in the studio. There's recording equipment. There's bass. There's everything you want. Tambourines to full-on drum kits, and they can play them at any time they choose. But I don't push them. I'd say it's there. You can't
Yeah.
possibly hit it any harder than I do. So go ahead and fucking pound it out.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But
Well,
they just haven't developed
at that
it yet.
age. I mean, like, and so Johnny's 9. You said, how old is your daughter?
My daughter, Madison, is 13.
13.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she sings and
This-
dances in the choir at school. She's in a
Okay.
program and stuff.
That when it's interesting because I think Johnny at that age too. I mean, those are the times where kids at that age they won't smile a lot of times in pictures, right? They're starting to just figure out he hasn't hit puberty yet.
No.
Things might completely change for
Right.
him, right? And that's exciting though, man. That you notice this difference and what he picked up on.
Yeah, it's very strange.
uh,
Maybe he'll do the thing where, like, where he realizes, if I pick up a guitar and play in a talent show, chicks are gonna dig me.
Yeah, well,
Or whoever, guys, girls, whatever.
yeah. Why did you get started, Tig?
Oh geez, why did I don't. That's a complicated question for me, because the truth is, Kevin, I don't know. I just know
Yeah.
that I was ultimately totally, completely attracted to music, I think, from the moment I was born. And
Wow.
then I must have been 5, maybe 6 years old, and I saw Kiss on television.
Oh,
Do you
that was
remember?
it.
Yeah, that was it. It was like my
Yeah.
Beatles on Ed Sullivan
Yeah.
moment. For me,
Right.
it was Kiss on. Do you remember Wolfman Jack?
Oh, of course.
It's the Wolfman, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was a character, and he was a local DJ here in Los Angeles too. I'm not in Los Angeles right now, but at home in Los Angeles. But he had a television show on Saturday nights called the Midnight Special. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Of course, man.
You'd see.
Yeah, you could still find those on YouTube.
Yeah,
now.
they're up.
Yeah.
Sly Stone and my old
Right.
boss Edgar Winter and this band Kiss. I saw Kiss and I just went, "What is that?"
Right.
But there's
Yeah.
a fucking cat playing drums. Are you
Right.
kidding me? There's a giant
The
cat.
demon.
Oh!
There's a demon spitting fire
Yeah!
and spitting blood.
Yeah, and there's
man.
candelabras, and there's this weird, quirky space guy who didn't really know how to walk, but
Oh,
could somehow,
man.
he played the Les Paul differently than Jimmy Page
Right.
did, and it was, I don't know, it was sloppy and punky and cool, and
Oh,
I just went, oh fuck, what is that? I have to do that, and I have to do that forever. That's what I'm gonna do. And I had this fantasy in my mind that, funny enough, I had this fantasy in my mind that Peter Criss was gonna, get injured or die in some horrible car accident, and Gene was gonna pick me out of the lineup one day and go, "You kid, you've got the good."
dude, I had the same dream, but it was during the Eric Carr era. I swear to God. I'm out there, and Paul Stanley's like, "Anybody out here play some drums?" Because Eric couldn't make the gig, and the drums are up there waiting. And so, me.
Kevin Rankin's gonna jump up and fucking nail it.
But I did in my dream. The drum throne would slide back off the riser, and the kick drums would slide forward. And I blew the gig, dude. I had that nightmare. Oh, yeah. So I tried telling Paul that years later. It wasn't. It never. But yeah, man. Your legitimate Kiss Peter Criss story. I think I like a lot more.
It was awesome.
Have you met Peter?
I have.
Yeah?
Yes. I got to work with Kiss a couple times. Well,
Okay.
Oh, hello, Raven. This is my family.
Oh my!
This is Raven.
Wow, nice.
Raven.
Mine's around here somewhere too.
My wife's
Edgar
gonna
Allan
coax
Poe.
her. That's my wife, Laura.
Hey, Laura, how you doing? That was awesome. She's like, "Who are you talking to at the Rainbow?" Yes, there's Lemmy's booth right there.
Yeah, right there.
So, yeah.
But yeah, Kiss was it, and I was always, it was strange. My early musical kind of immersion was always equal parts rock and equal parts funk and soul.
Okay.
So, it was Kiss and also Earth, Wind and Fire. It was
nice.
It was Deep Purple and Brothers Johnson. And
nice.
and I took a lot of shit during the metal years for that, because I always had that I always had that love and that kind of soulful, funky kind of vibe. I even to this day, I still, I'm kind of my playing's kind of funky, and I think it's from that. I think it's because of that. Equal parts Ted Nugent and George Benson, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, you know what, man? I mean, you talked about Nate Morton earlier. Guys that we respect and appreciate are not, one-trick ponies.
No.
I mean, they can play and guitarists and pianists and keyboardists. But yeah, you've trained on different stuff. And yeah, I remember early on, like, loving metal rock stuff, but thinking Spyro Gyra was just unbelievable.
Dave Weckl,
Yellow Jackets.
Oh my God,
Weckl. Weckl changed my life.
Yeah,
dude. I was 16 and I was so into Scorpions and Motley and all those bands. My dad took me to go see Chick Corea Acoustic Band in Montana.
Ooh,
and
heavy stuff.
I had never seen anything like it. I had a jazz drummer uncle in Chicago, so I'd seen him do jazz, but the fusion stuff that Weckl was doing, I ran backstage. I was 16. I went backstage and I said, I have to know what you were doing.
How did you do that?
Dude, and he actually invited me back to the hotel. We hung for hours. He sat and told me about using electronics. He wrote me a letter later on, which I still have framed.
Wow.
And to me, my dad, had to talk his way to come back, then go to the hotel while we sat. And I've told Weckl about this later, how at that point, I don't know that I would have actually extended myself in other genres and other disciplines had it not been for the conversation we had,
Sure.
and also about the party, because he asked me, he said, "Hey, yeah, man, do you party a little bit?" And I was this long-haired rocker, right? And I said, "No, man, I don't." I was super clean and sober, like, I'd show up with a Jolt, if you remember those
Jolt
drinks back
Cola, yeah.
at parties.
All the
Yeah,
sugar and twice the caffeine.
exactly. You
I
got it, man.
remember.
But he said, dude, good, because if you continue, you party the way a lot of us did in our 20s, and you want to make this a career, there's absolutely no way you can do that and still be effective.
No.
You just won't keep the gigs.
No.
And
No.
I saved my parties for the most part till my 30s, and that's unfortunate that I had that window, but I had to learn it at some point. But yeah, man, looking at him today, dude, the guy is ungodly to watch how he still plays with such finesse and such chops. And
Did you get drummer +1?
what was that?
Did you go out and get Dave Weckles drummer +1?
That's right.
Do you remember
I forgot
that?
about the man
It-
on vinyl.
I got it on cassette, and
Okay, maybe that was it. Yeah,
he would
like,
play the song, and then there
Yeah.
was also an accompanying VHS, and you could
That's
watch him
right,
play
yeah,
the song, but then you could
Yep.
put in the tape, and there was a version of it with just a click without the
with
drums,
the drums,
and you
yep,
could mimic
yep.
what he would try. Well, we all tried. None of us got
Yeah,
there.
yeah, right. Yeah. Vinny would have been there.
Calueta?
But that's
Yeah,
yeah,
Vinny would
yeah,
have nailed it, but I certainly couldn't. But I certainly tried. I made
yeah,
the attempt.
God. Dude, my kid, it's funny. My oldest son was a wicked drummer. Neil Peart was God to him.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Rush was all he wanted to hear. And I remember him telling Nate Morton, "Yeah, if it's not Neil, it's nothing." And Nate was like, "You ever heard of this guy, Vinny Colaiuta?" And my son said, "Yeah, my dad talks about him all the time." And he goes, "I got something to play for you." And so we went out after he did a bunch of tracking for The Voice. We went in his car and probably an hour and a half. We listened to obscure deep cut Colaiuta stuff, and then my son listened and he goes, "You see what I'm talking about?" He's asking, like, quizzing my son on time signatures. And my son said, "Yeah, it's impressive. But show me the songs where he wrote the lyrics." And then that's like,
Well,
touche. Yeah.
well,
Nate goes,
there's this other thing that Neil does too. Yeah.
yeah, man. I hadn't really thought about that component, but I love that my kid valued that much. But still, Vinny, come on, right?
Dude.
But
God.
man, this can't all be dude.
Okay,
I'm curious. I'm curious about the values. I mean, you talked a lot about. I talked about how important it was, values, and being a dad, and in the business too. Integrity is super important, right? So. Yeah. You've got the reputation to be able to get the first call for a lot of this stuff, whether it be performing drums in these bands or be a tour manager, front of house engineer. Have there been times where your integrity was sort of compromised in the business that you felt like you were challenged a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about our business. It's so transient and it's so finicky, and the guy you got the gig from today may be your boss tomorrow, or he may be the guy that you give the gig to next week. Yeah. So there's this weird side-by-side thing that happens. You're in direct competition with your friends a lot, and you're in direct competition, that you respect and love, and some folks, I won't mention names, are willing to do things, say things, act in ways to get the gig, knowing that what they're doing, saying, and the way they're portraying you is inaccurate. Yeah. And it happens on both sides. It happens on the playing side, and it happens on the audio side, and it happens just generally as people in the music business. We've all been in that situation where, like, I'll give you. There was when you and I were often on the same bills. I was playing in 3 different bands that had their most popular tunes in the 80s and early 90s. Motels, Gene Loves Jezebel, and Bow Wow Wow. At the time, you were in Animotion, and sometimes you would sub in for Missing Persons or even Gene Loves Jezebel. I think you played with Michael a couple times, right?
I never did.
Oh, never.
No,
Okay.
he called me. I just never.
You
Did
never
the
did
gig.
the gig, but you got the call, and
Right.
so and then eventually you're now with Flock of Seagulls. There was
Right.
another drummer doing it at that time, and that drummer would sometimes fill in with
Jezebel.
Gene Love Jezebel, and
That's right.
I sometimes share that gig a little bit. And Michael will call me, or he'll call Tony from Dramarama, and
Yeah,
and
Tony
and,
Snow.
and yeah, we're all kind of in this column, right? There's a bunch of us,
Yeah.
but there's a couple guys on the outside who would, oh, did you see that Tig fucked up that tune tonight? He fucked that. They're trying to get the gig,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
going to the artist. I won't mention names, but going to the artist and
Yeah.
going, did you the thing with the, and like, why
Yeah.
would you do that? Instead, I'd go to somebody else and go, fucking Kevin killed it tonight. Oh my God, his groove was so solid. Look at these great photos I shot of you, or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a difference there, and
Yeah.
the difference is, I want you to succeed.
Yeah.
I want me to succeed,
Yeah.
and as you
that
succeed,
is-
I succeed. Rising water
Absolutely.
raises all boats, and it raises all boats equally, right? That's
That's right.
that's the reality. Look, I've lost a couple of key gigs that I thought were like, I really did think, okay, this could be the gig that I get known for the rest of my life. And there's been
Really.
a couple of very near misses on that stuff. And for one reason or another, it either didn't happen, or I got replaced when another member came in or something, or whatever the circumstances are. But one thing is true. I never threw anybody under the bus to get a gig. That's the thing.
Awesome.
I may
Yeah.
I may have lost it because of something, but I never went back and said, so and so that told you that thing, or showed you that thing, or said that thing, or did that thing, they're not worthy, or they don't merit the gig that they have.
Yeah.
I won't do that.
Yeah, man.
I won't do that.
Buddy, that some people feel like that is part of the business, that has to be that way. I like the rising waters raises all boats quote. That's a really good one. And I feel that way about not just, musicians amongst musicians in the band, but also bands in general. If we're all in the same bill, I that adage of, not, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It only makes you look petty if you start talking about the other bands.
Right.
I mean, if you want to shine, man, just shine your own light, right? You don't need to. This just happened, man. There was some guy that walked up, a guy I've known for a while, walked up to my boss, and he said, "Hey, man, if you ever need a sub on a gig, if you ever need a drummer for a gig," and I'm sitting right there, and I was like,
What the?
dude, I am sitting right here, and your wife is in the other room. If I went over to you and said, "Hey, listen, your wife, if you ever,
If he ain't taking care of business,
yeah, I mean,
Kevin Rankin."
of course, I would never say it, but I thought the stones on this guy, right? And I think that is people's personality. Sometimes they feel like they have to do that, But you've been a shining example of somebody that you don't need to do that ever. I love it, man. When you hear guys at real high levels that revere other players, you go side stage at those massive festivals in Europe, and you see real players standing off to the side, just admiring the other bands and supporting the other bands. And to me, whatever. Like, Mick Jagger doesn't have anything to prove, right? But if he's standing there watching, one of these bands and appreciating what's going on there, that says something.
I remember. I'm remembering something that came into focus while you were talking. I was out with Kevin Martin from Candlebox.
Yeah.
He did this fabulous record called "The Possibility of Being," and
It was his solo.
yeah, it's his solo record.
Okay.
Kevin Martin and the Highwatts.
Yeah.
And so I joined Kevin's band, and I was just really, really loving playing those songs. And of course, we would play Candlebox songs as well.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
because people would really want to hear "Far Behind" and "Cover Me,"
Oh, yeah.
those great, fabulous songs. And Kevin's a fucking monster singer and a badass drummer in his own right.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Kevin's a
right on.
monster drummer. And
Nice.
and I remember, a couple times Kevin going, "Tig, can you play a little looser? You're kind of funky and tight, and I like that.
Yeah.
Can you be a little looser? Give it a little, think a little
Seattle
more, a
sound.
little classic Rocky, loosen it up a little bit. And I remember thinking, I'm going to try to do that, but it's not really in my nature. But I'm going to do everything I can to be like Nate Morton or you, and morph into what it is. And when there were some changes going on, and he was talking about putting the original Candlebox lineup back together, and maybe he had a couple more shows, and we had finished this tour, and all of a sudden I didn't get the call, and I was like, wow. I didn't get the call for that. This next group of shows before they're going to go back out. And I thought to myself, what's the most important thing? Well, it's something I said earlier when we were talking. Is the audience leaving the venue going, that was fucking fabulous? Well, maybe were leaving the venue going, the band was great, but that drummer's groove was a little too funky and tight for, just a little too, kind of, not quite the right vibe. Maybe I wasn't the right guy for that gig. And I had to think of it in terms of that. Maybe if I'm serving the song and I'm serving the audience, maybe I'm not the right guy to do that. And I've got to put my ego aside and accept the fact that maybe I wasn't it. I wasn't going to go watch the person who took the seat after me and call Kevin and go, hey, man, she sucked. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
One, it wasn't true. And two, that doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve him. It doesn't serve the band. Instead, I'm going to go buy a ticket and fucking say you were great. I love these songs. I love seeing you play. My buddy Adam's still in the band, and we're all still friends. And maybe I just wasn't right for that gig. And that's okay.
Class act, bro. Honestly. I mean, that certainly could relate to any other sort of relationship, whether it be a romantic relationship or business relationship. Music there's a place where the ego could get in the way to not recognize that for whatever reason it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
There have been times where I'm in the studio and I get asked to do like metal parts, like double bass stuff, and my chops are so far gone from that, and I'll just tell the engineer right away, dude, I'm just going to save you time. I know the right guy for this, so let's call him.
Yeah.
And I feel great about it because I could try, I used to want to wear all the hats. I'd love to be the guy that got all the calls, right? But I know that I can't be all things to all people. But your humility right there is, I think, a pretty good indicator of why you're getting those phone calls. That your proficiency is all there, but the fact that your attitude is like that means that you're gonna continue to get calls because people want to be around people like that. That's just the nature. That's the fact, man.
I hope that's true.
Well, dude, I think when your kids see that's your relationship with people too, I think that's a really great opportunity for them to see that this is, man, this is how I want to be, in all aspects of my life. Somebody, Danny Carlson, dude, another friggin' badass drummer. Nice to see you here, Danny. Danny's I'm a big fan of his drumming. He's a Northwest guy here in town. I've played his parts many a time.
Yeah.
One thing I'd love to do at the end of these shows, man, is it's fun for me to kind of get people's guilty pleasures, right? Yeah, and I've had some funny ones. I mean, Dave Ellefson, talking about secretly being into disco, even though in the time of his, Megadeth, the level, he's still a big disco guy.
Yeah.
So, whether it's music or food or movies or anything like that, man, what if people felt like they really knew TIG Moore? What might they be surprised to find that is a TIG Moore guilty pleasure?
World War II radio broadcasts.
Really?
Hoagie Carmichael.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
On the U.S. side.
Yeah.
Not the Brit.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
I've got a couple hundred of them that people have put online. There was a box set one time. I was doing this show that had a bunch of them. And they said, well, we're going to use a bunch of music on that. Can you load all these into a instant replay machine? And so when I did that, I just took all those files and I dumped them in my computer, and they come up, and like Glenn Miller and my kids. The funny thing is, anybody who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with all things Walt Disney. I live in the shadow of Buena Vista in Burbank, and uh, so my kids think that, oh, this is Disneyland music. This is the sound of
Oh.
Disneyland to them. All that
Yeah.
old World War II, 1940s and early 50s stuff. I love that. Um,
So it's the music, but the broadcast during the war, like not like
Hello,
the
kids.
like
We're
new.
coming to you live from the Ovaltine Studios at,
Wow.
and hello to all the boys overseas. This is, whoever the aforementioned Hoagie Carmichael, or this is
Yeah.
the Lemon Sisters, or whoever. I have tons of those, and I love listening to that stuff. I don't see it as guilty because I'm not ashamed of loving any music
Sure.
that I love. But people
Yeah.
would probably, and people have bristled sometimes when I put on something. I love Kenny Loggins.
Oh, nice. How can you not
I
like Kenny Loggins,
fucking
man?
love Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I love disco. I
Okay.
love funk. Um, yeah, those are
Oh,
the things that I dig. I love singing stuff that you wouldn't think a male, recovered metalhead would
yeah.
love.
Recovered.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's in there deep, man.
Yeah.
The metal it's Kiss and Deep Purple. It's in there, the heavy stuff. I love Seven Dust. Oh, I love that
Oh
band.
yeah,
It's
dude.
so,
Morgan Rose. Yeah.
oh,
Lejean.
Lejean's
I
vocals and
dude.
so good.
Yeah. That band, they're so dangerous, right? I mean, you listen to them and you want to drive fast. You want to slam
I
drums.
want to break windows.
Yeah, you do, man. You know, God, there were a couple of things that just came up right there, but the heavy metal nickname that I've had for decades since I was a kid, I kind of lose that cred when we're playing with all these new wave bands,
Yeah.
right? So I secretly want that call. I want whatever. I want you know uh, Anselmo to call me up and go, "Hey man, Benante can't do this one Pantera gig. All right, so we're just gonna have you just one. All right, we're just gonna play everything off Cowboys. All right, and it's just a one gig. I want to
I'm
just
just
do that
gonna do
one and then
Walk
just
over and over and over again.
no, dude, all Cowboys from Hell, man. That record is just. But um, the you had me thinking about like some of these other artists that we've played with too. Uh, we get on weird pairings, right? Where sometimes you'll be playing with all new wave bands, and then they'll add like a weird add-on, or when you're doing Europe shows, right? There'll
Yeah.
be a weird combo, and so we're doing like stuff with the Night Ranger coming up too. And I'm
I
such a
saw that you're gonna
massive.
have Kelly Keegy
Yeah.
on.
Well, yeah, dude, Kelly's a dear friend. I'm working on a website for him right now, and he's one of those guys like you, dude. So talented in so many aspects, and he's gifted and a songwriter, man. And like he sings half those tunes in Night Ranger
And to
while he's
play
drumming
and sing, and he
and to
plays
play.
his
Yeah,
ass off.
he does
Dude.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. And he's 71, 72 years old. He hits harder than anybody I know,
Yeah.
So it's we could all hope, right, that we're still doing this. I mean, you keep talking about how old you are, but you still look like you're about 16.
I'm
Damn it. So
52.
are you? We're the same age.
Yeah,
Same
yeah,
age, man. Yeah. I'm feeling a lot older than 52 today, but man, I got to tell you, it was a beautiful coincidence to run into the other night. When we were at the airport, I was just flying out. You guys were flying out. You're out with Robbie Krieger. You're going off to do that gig. You had some Midwest shows
Yeah.
happening right then.
Yeah.
I was going East Coast. So how did they go?
Oh, it went great. Yeah. We did Arcada Theater, Des Plaines.
Yeah.
Um,
Were you at Genesee and Waukegan as
yeah,
well?
yeah.
Okay. Yep.
It was really fabulous. His band is so good. Ty Dennis is on drums.
Oh, yeah.
Dan
Yeah. He's
Rothschild
badass.
is playing bass from Heart and Tonic, and of course his dad was Paul Rothschild, who produced all the Doors records.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a
Man,
family thing.
That's a connection. I didn't even
Robbie's
think about
son
that.
Waylon is also sings about. Waylon sings about half the set, and Dan Rothschild sings the other half. Dan plays
Okay.
bass, and Ed Roth on keys. It's just a stellar
Right.
band.
That guy is a character,
Yeah.
man. Ed Roth is like
he's
that guy.
he's a wild one, isn't he?
Yeah, you gotta
Oof.
have there's only so much room, much air in the room,
And he
when
takes
he's in
all
the
of
room.
it.
I noticed that. Well, so because like right now, then this writer strike, obviously, so Kimmel's not happening.
Yeah.
So what else is going on for you right now to fill the time?
Right now, I'm working with this fabulous new artist that I'm playing drums on and helping kind of a little bit produce, not a lot, but a little bit, named Unfamiliar Things.
Okay.
Matt Levy is kind of it's basically his project. The first record is doing very, very well. We're hard at work on record number 2. We're tracking all the drums at Robbie's studio at Love Street Sound. Back to it on Monday.
Awesome.
Cutting more drums for Unfamiliar Things. Check them out. You just type in Unfamiliar Things on the internet and it all comes up. Really great
Okay.
pop. Kind of folky, but I inject a little bit of funk and groove in it, a little bit. My
Nice.
sensibilities in there a little bit. He allows me to be me. He kind of just goes, "Okay, Tig, here's the nuts and bolts of the song. Do you?" And so
Nice.
I'm really excited about that. Great new band I'm working with called Counterfeit Theory that I'm
Okay.
producing and playing drums in. I do some of the background vocals. Aaron Wong is the singer in that, and Chad Yasuhura and Mike Koyman on bass. Just fabulous, stellar LA musicians. All have been in a million other things that you've heard of.
Yeah.
And you can check that out at counterfeittheory.com. There's some great tracks. There's a great mashup on there of a. I don't want to give it away, but go check it out. There's a great mashup of a couple of '80s tunes that you wouldn't expect rock
Right
band to
on.
play.
Heck yeah.
Doug
More
Rappaport,
guilty pleasures.
Doug Rappaport from Edgar Winter
Oh,
band. You know Doug?
dude, Doug's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, of
Doug's
course, man.
fucking
You playing with Doug?
Yeah, well, I brought him in, and he plays a solo on the tune I'm talking about. So go check it out,
Okay.
counterfeittheory.com.
Wow. Right on.
Because I worked with Edgar Winter for a long time, and so Doug and I got really close, and so I hire him once in a while when I can, when there's budget and time, because he's just
Yeah.
so good.
Right.
But we have a great guitar player in the band, but we wanted Doug to do his specific Douginess on it.
He's a badass.
Yeah, he's a monster. So I'm doing
He was-
that, and I do the casual gig. I'm always available for session work, and so I'm doing lots of that. I just get, oh, so and so said you were great on this other thing. I listened to this other thing. Will you play on this song? So there's a lot of that happens. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
The best way for people that are looking for cats like Tig, they hit you on your Instagram. Is that the best
Yeah.
point of connection?
Tig
All right.
_Moore at Instagram. There's not a lot of Tig Moores on the internet, so I'm pretty easy to find. And you could always get in touch with me if you need a drummer or an audio engineer.
Yeah. What hats don't you wear, man? I mean, like Tig Notaro she's got the stand-up comedy part of the Tig connection, but and you said you had a story about her.
You want to end with the Tig Notaro story? Okay.
Yeah. Let's hear
Okay.
it. Hold on a second. Did it have anything to do with Louis C.K.?
I have had something to do with Louis C.K., but it doesn't. This story does.
Okay.
Not.
All right.
I do have a Louis C.K. story, but we won't go there.
That podcast number 2.
Yes, we'll do that another time.
Yeah.
We'll save that for dinner next time I'm in Portland or I run into you at the airport.
All right.
But we'll end with this story. So
Okay.
So I'm the front of house audio engineer at the Wiltern for 20 years. I retired just before the pandemic shut everything down for a second time. But before that happened, Tig came in and taped a bunch of shows that I guess were going to be, I don't know, archived or maybe for a television special or something. I don't know. They were filming anyway. Live audience. And she ends her set with she tells the story about how she was trying to be, I'll paraphrase, make it quick. She tells the story about how she was trying to be cool in school. And she joined a music class. She doesn't play an instrument, but there was this class about music called Music Appreciation. And she goes into the class, and one of the first things the teacher tells her is the whole class, bring in a record that you really dig. And she wanted to be cool. And so she goes to her friend and said, "What's a cool record? I don't have a lot of records." She was like, I think I had like the Partridge Family or something, like something not terribly cool. And she's like, "Well, my dad has a record collection and he really likes the Stones. Does your dad have any Stones records? And she's like, oh yeah, my dad has a Stones record. So she brings in the record and she goes to her friend. She goes, what song on this record should I play? That would make me look cool. And she's like, I borrowed a jean, like a denim jean jacket. I wanted to be cool. And I got my Stones record. And her friend goes, can't always get what you want. That's a great song. Everybody loves that song. And what's more rock and roll than the Stones playing You Can't Always Get What You Want? And so she goes on stage. She's telling the story. And she had told me earlier at soundcheck, I'm going to cue you when I say play the song, hit play and play the Stones song. Well, the joke is she's at the front of the class. She's being cool. She's got her denim jacket. She's got her Stone record. She puts it on. She drops the needle. Well, the album version of You Can't Get What You Want starts off with the London Boys Choir going, I saw her today at the reception. So for a minute 30, she's standing there looking like a doofus with a Stones record in her jacket that doesn't fit her, listening to the boys choir going, I saw her. But the funny part is right when she gets to this part of the joke, she goes, Tig, play the song. And the audience is just dumbfounded because she hasn't told them that my name is Tig and her name is Tig. They're totally confused. They're like, she's pointing at front of house going, Tig, play the song.
Talking to herself.
And she realized the joke didn't work because of it. So she stops and she goes, everybody turn around. See that guy back there? His name is also Tig.
Nice.
And that's my Tig Notaro story.
I think at that point, she should have decided, I'm going to take him with me wherever I go. If not even to mix, just to tell the story.
Yeah, just to tell the story. So that's my Tig Notaro story.
I love it, man. Well, next, if I ever get to see her live doing her stand-up thing, I'll have to make sure that I tell her, I saw the other Tig.
The other Tig.
Yes. Man, I love it, buddy.
Great seeing you, Kevin.
Dude,
I love you.
I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so grateful to be reconnected with you in life. And I can't wait to come down and see you again. Let's cross paths. We'll just break bread, grab some coffee next time I'm in LA or next time you're up in Portland.
Absolutely.
Enjoy your time with your family tonight, man. Thank you for taking time out. If you guys got here late, man, go back. There's so many great stories about this beautiful human being. Check him out on Instagram, instagram.com/TIG_Moore, MOORE. Thanks again to 5 Star Guitars for supporting us. Subscribe to the channel, like it, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, buddy.
Love you, Kev.
Love you too, man.